This is the riskiest time for the virus everywhere in Colorado that we have had from the very start.
Colorado's message is clear. What we're doing isn't working. So today, the state added a new level of restrictions aimed at slowing the spread of COVID without going into a full-on lockdown. The COVID dial used to measure the level of restrictions for different counties has added now a purple level. So this means a stay-at-home order and more closures at purple. Level red now, or severe, now means more restrictions on gyms, restaurants, and indoor events.
Bottom line here, the state invented a new level in order to avoid places going into lockdown right now. They've pushed the goalpost to a new worst-case scenario. The kaleidoscope of changing colors is confusing. Even the governor admitted that.
Now is that crunch time. So I don't want everyday Coloradans to think about red and blue and green. I want you to think about you keeping your family safe.
15 counties go under this new level red Friday, including almost every county in the Denver metro area. So Denver, Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Douglas, Jefferson counties. Also, Clear Creek, Summit, Routt, and Mesa counties are on that list. You can find the full list of the 15 counties entering new, tougher restrictions on 9news.com. The map showing the different levels of restrictions will change on Friday when we get the official word on this. Currently, at least 37 of Colorado's 64 counties are under level orange. So what that means is that more than just the 15 we know about may be in danger of going into that red zone. 9 News reporter Mark Salinger looks at what this means for Coloradans in those counties.
Counties around the state have moved to add new restrictions in an attempt to curb the spread of COVID-19. But as we hear state leaders talking about moving back on the dial or moving from orange level to red level, it can all be a little bit confusing. One thing's for sure, these new restrictions are going to impact a lot of what we do every day. Here's what's changing. We're going to see the biggest changes at restaurants. For counties moving to the red level, in-person indoor dining is now closed. You're still allowed to sit outside, but only with members of your own family. Last call is also moving from 10 p.m. back to 8 p.m. So what about schools? Not much is changing here. The governor suggests that elementary school students do in-person learning, but ultimately it's up to each individual district to decide whether students are in class or learning virtually. The state is also working with federal officials to support funding for safety measures to allow schools to reopen. The focus is for the youngest students to stay in class. Gyms will stay open, but they're going to seem even more empty than they already are. They're moving from 25% capacity down to 10% capacity. This will have an economic impact. Governor Polis announced that lawmakers will convene for a special session to pass COVID-19 relief legislation with the goal of aiding small businesses.
Now we're really looking at class sizes of 4, 5, maybe 6 people, but it's a huge challenge. It's really difficult to imagine that being sustainable in any way for us.
So yes, these new restrictions will impact a lot of what we do every day. For now, you'll still be able to get a haircut or go to church, even though there will be capacity restrictions. But if we slide back even further, even more businesses could close. In Denver, I'm Mark Salinger, 9 News.
Restaurants in 15 counties operating on razor-thin margins already are scrambling to prepare for the latest state orders. As winter approaches, they are no longer allowed to seat people inside. 9 News reporter Ryan Harrer has more on how the industry will try to adapt.
The first shutdown hit Smoke in Denver's Rhino neighborhood hard.
Initially, there was probably a 30% loss.
But owner William Espiricueta found a way to power through, in part thanks to stimulus money hitting Denverites' accounts.
We had actually started doing more business than before altogether because of the takeout.
But there's no stimulus with these new orders preventing indoor dining, and as temperatures drop, Smoke won't bother offering outdoor service. Takeout only, leading to the hardest part for Espiricueta, furloughing his staff.
I understand the purpose of it, but the problem is they're telling us to do something without any sort of help.
The federal government has not authorized significant stimulus since March, despite the unemployment rate nearly double what it was before the pandemic. Dr. Kishore Kulkarni is an economics professor at MSU Denver.
I think there has to be more help coming up because otherwise we are looking at a very serious chain of events. Because if a restaurant is closed, then there are suppliers closed, then what economists call a multiplier effect. And if that multiplier effect takes place, then economic crisis happens even faster.
Espiricueta is confident he will weather the storm, but he knows many others with different business models and no clear end in sight may not make it through the next few weeks.
This is going to be debilitating and devastating for a lot of restaurants.
In Denver, Ryan Harrer, 9 News.
Espiricueta says between his 2 restaurants, he will have to furlough about 18 workers. He says the best way to help restaurants right now is to go orders, and if possible, remember, avoid using those third-party apps. They charge those restaurants so many high fees.
Democratic Governor Jared Polis is calling state lawmakers back to the Capitol for a special session focused on pandemic relief. The governor wants a plan that would help small businesses, assist Coloradans with rent and mortgages, and give extra money to child care providers to stay in business and deal with increased demand. But this has been a year of pandemic-related budget cuts. Colorado is not in the position the federal government was to deficit spend or throw big checks at everybody. Governor acknowledged that. Democrats run both chambers of the State House, and they say there is some money available thanks to tax revenue and federal aid.
We've been expecting that Congress would take action. They haven't. We don't know when they finally will. So we can do what we can in the meantime. I think it provides a bridge to hopefully something that Congress can do, and some assurance as we go into a really tough time with COVID and going into the holidays.
Legislative budget leaders estimate the state's going to spend about $200 million on economic stimulus.
The latest data gives us an idea of why some counties are facing these tougher restrictions. Hospitalizations from COVID-19 jumped from 1,378 in Colorado, another new state record. That's up 84 patients from just yesterday. Now, we're also seeing a steady climb in the number of deaths. This graph, it isn't perfect because reporting data for deaths that tends to lag a bit, but you can notice that upward trend. On November 5th, the state reported 26 deaths, the most for a single day since early May.
12.2% of tests came back positive yesterday. Our weekly average for positivity is holding steady about 12.6%. That's not good, all things considered, but hopefully it's a sign that things are starting to level off. The state added almost 3,800 new cases yesterday. We are averaging about 4,500 new cases for the past week.
Democratic Congressman Ed Perlmutter has tested positive for COVID. Perlmutter says that he is asymptomatic for now. He says he's feeling pretty good. He says he'll isolate at his apartment in Washington, D.C. and work and vote remotely. Perlmutter is 67 years old. A few other representatives have also tested positive in recent days. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa has also tested positive. He says he feels fine. He's also isolating. Grassley is 87 years old and is the most senior Republican in the Senate. As president pro tempore, he is third in line to the presidency. His positive test caused him to miss the first vote in the chamber since 1993.